Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Amaazen Outdoors. This podcast is being presented by Upland Outfitters, home of the Relentless Pants, man. Those things are awesome. I had them out this week, and I pretty much, since I started the partnership with Jason, have been wearing those pants out anytime over the summer here where I had to do any work at the farm or dog training. I've even had them on the boat a little bit. They are tough as nails. I have yet to see a pull 'em thread. I've been in some nasty briars. They really held up a lot better than I thought. I can't recommend them enough. Hunting season is around the corner. Make sure you use discount code Amaazen, and I believe Jason is still offering 20% off on the Relentless Pants. So pick up a pair before hunting season is upon us, and you're out in the woods with a ripped up pair of pants and sweating, unnecessarily, because Jason's pants and the Relentless Pants are top notch and breathable, light. So you're going to want them this early season. Make sure you get them now. I also have a quick announcement. We've got another kind of temporary partnership with Chippewa River Custom Rods. Tom is going to be offering 10% off with discount code Amaazen 10, Amaazen 10, and it's all caps. If you decide to call him for a custom rod, just make sure you tell him that you heard about custom rods on Amaazen Outdoors Podcast, and he will make sure that you get hooked up with a discount. All that information for both sponsors and partners are going to be in the show notes, so please support the podcast and these great companies. They are really good partners for the podcast, and I would like to see our listeners support them as well. So look them up, Upland Outfitters and Chippewa River Custom Rods. Enjoy today's show. This is the Amaazen Outdoors Podcast. We have another episode for you. I actually pass off the microphone to a good friend, Jeff Nuss. He was on interview. He was my first interview, actually. Best bird hunting buddy. Anyways, he was able to coordinate a really, really great interview. And we have Thurman Tucker from 2 different chapters of Minnesota Quail Forever. So enjoy. But, you know, like other podcasts, we have to pay some bills around here. And I don't mean to say that in a bad way. We are super, super excited. First, very humbled by the listener response and the welcoming from Upland Outfitters and Jason. You know, I have to thank everybody. Thank you so much. This has been an awesome opportunity to do some of the things that I have so far for this podcast. And I'm just humbled. So thank you. I've got a Saturday Sharptail episode coming up. So be on the lookout for that. I think I'm going to drop it on Saturday. Why not? I did last week's. I've been super, super busy. I've been kind of off grid a little bit. I planted 550 trees. I started turkey hunting with my uncle on Saturday or on Wednesday. We've definitely had more encounters with bears than turkeys. Kind of excited for bear season. This one bear that now scared the crap out of my uncle tonight. Scared me last season. Real good in the cornfield edge, playing with a camera, trail camera, and I surprised everybody in that particular county didn't hear me scream like a little girl when I looked up, and 5 feet in front of me is a 350-pound black bear looking at me. I guess a similar thing happened to my uncle tonight, but between all that, I've been really, really busy planting trees and praying for rain. Wife has a business, and I have to, real quickly special thanks out to the wife. She's allowed me to do all this, and yeah, I can't say enough. Love you, honey. But Upland Outfitters. Jason came on board, sponsoring the podcast. He's given you guys, the listeners, 10% off and free shipping on his Relentless pants. And I will tell you, the hashtag Be Relentless, they fit the pants. I ran them through the ringer up at the farm, planting trees, ran them out in the woods, turkey hunting, doing some scouting, had them in the gooseberries and the prickly ash and in the briars and last year's raspberry bushes. I'm thoroughly impressed. It's the kind of stuff that I normally have Filson chaps on and nothing against anybody else's, but it's just something I kind of have had since I started bird hunting. But these pants held up so good, and they're so light, and they're so comfortable. I mean, just wearing in the truck, I've had them on way more than any other pants. My wife literally thinks that I'm nuts, but check them out. They're a little expensive. They're definitely worth it. Jason sources the product that was used in under an employment contract or deployment contract for soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. This stuff is military grade, made in America, sewn in America, designed in America. It is stamp of approval, American made through and through. Support it. Support jobs in America, and support the podcast. So promo code is Amaazing. So you can get 10% off and free shipping on anything you order, anything you want from Jason and Upland Outfitters. And Upland Outfitters is UPLND, no A. So today's episode, Thurman Tucker, 40 years dedicating work to quail and youth outreach in Minnesota. He's really, I think, personally, from what I can tell, responsible for keeping Bobwhites whistling in southern Minnesota. And again, special thanks to Jeff. He coordinated this and is doing a little bit of guest hosting here on the Amaazen Outdoors podcast. So you're going to hear a little bit more of his voice. Hope you guys are enjoying it. We're going to get at the show. Well, we're back for another episode of Amaazen Outdoors. I'm not on studio today. I'm on location at my buddy Jeff's house. Jeff's going to be doing some guest hosting for me, and we've got a really interesting guest here today. So this is another episode, and I'm going to hand the microphone over to Jeff, and he's going to do the introduction today.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me. I'm your guest host, Jeff Nuss. You may recognize my voice from episode 2 or 3, I want to say. So
We were one of the two.
Yeah, I would say we were basically just chatting bird hunting and quail hunting and grouse hunting and all dogs and all that sort of fun stuff. So you might be hearing my voice a little bit more on the podcast here. But I'd like to introduce our guest today. We have Thurman Tucker, who is part of Minnesota Quail Forever. Thurman, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thurman, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you grew up and where you're from and that type of thing.
Yeah, I grew up in Tennessee, born in Memphis, Tennessee, and my mother passed away when I was 7 years old, and we were living in Memphis at that time, of course, and my father, he was working full-time, so he couldn't take care of us, so my mother originally was from Mississippi, so he took us down there, which is 60 miles south of Memphis, and he left my 2 brothers and my sisters lived down there for 5 years. And from there, I started getting into nature quite a bit. It's kind of a shock to my system going from Memphis, where there was sidewalks and running water and everything else that was civilized people, you might say. You go in there was no indoor plumbing, no electricity. It was no sidewalks, all gravel roads. That was a shock to my system as a 7-year-old.
Sure.
But anyway, my uncles, they loved to hunt, they loved to fish and stuff like that. So they got us boys involved in an early age, and I caught on, and boy, I tell you, I just loved it. I just really, really loved it.
Was it quail hunting down there? Or
yeah, they did pretty much all the small game, rabbit, squirrel. They did coon hunting. I never got into coon hunting too much because it's nighttime hunting primarily. But it was, quail hunting. Didn't have pheasants down there, but it was mainly the rabbit, the squirrel, and the quail hunting is what they did.
Sure. Awesome. So like I kind of mentioned before, you are part of Minnesota Quail Forever. What do you do there?
Well, I'm the coordinator. We have 2 chapters here in the state. We have one in the southeast, primarily in Houston and Fillmore counties. And we have a chapter there, and we have a chapter here in the metro area. So I'm the coordinator of both of those chapters.
Okay, excellent. So reading your biography, looks like you've had quite a bit of experience in some of these nature conservation efforts. Tell us about some of the previous conservation program or groups that you've had in the past.
Yeah, I pretty much worked with the quail. Really, the way I started the interest in quail here in Minnesota. When I came here, I was, again, a hunter. Still am a hunter, just don't hunt as much as I like to. But anyway, I knew that the numbers were low. I was told that. And so a group of us got together and we formed what at that time was called the Bobwhite Quail Society. And the idea is to bring that bird's numbers back up where they could be hunted. The DNR had closed the season in 1958, and it has not been open since. And so we just said, hey, why can't we just bring that bird numbers back up? And so that was basically the real interest. And I just stuck with quail. And now it's more than just quail. Of course, it's the pheasant, the grouse, turkeys, songbirds, basically all wildlife. And so, sure. But quail still is the main species that we go after.
Sure. Excellent. So can you tell us a little bit, what is the history of quail in Minnesota? Where was its historical range, historical numbers?
Historical range, they were as far north. It's about 120 miles north of the Twin Cities. I mean, that was really way back there. But the farming practices started changing back late 19th century, early 20th centuries, and it just kind of really did not do the quail any favors. The numbers started going down, and pretty soon it got to the point that the DNR said, hey, why don't we just close the season, so to speak. But they were quite north of the Twin Cities. I never will forget, when I first started off, I was going around trying to find where were quail and how far north was. I was up to at least about 80 miles north of the cities, and I can't remember the farmer that I talked to. And I was talking to him, and this is a guy here probably at that time, now I'm probably in my 30s, of course, but at that time, he looked like he's probably in his 40s. So, you know what? I was just talking to him. I remember as a kid when I came out, it was a cold winter day once, and we had horses, and the horses were in the barn, and there was a covey of quail sitting right on the back end of the horses. And a little covey there. They like to roost in this covey, round circle formation. And he said, yeah, we used to hear them and all, and this is about 80 miles north of the cities. Now, I didn't ever go up to 100 miles north and all. but he heard them and he saw them and he had them on his farm back then and all. So they were up there and everything, you know. Wow. And then the range began to diminish down to, again, southeast is where they are now.
Okay. How many?
I'm sorry, Jeff. I just had one quick question related to the range. So when the birds ranged that far north, I know in like Wisconsin, when they had the big quail boom, it was really due to like the cutover that happened in the state. So, yeah. I mean, forestry came through, cut everything down for logging, and then created kind of this environment that these birds were able to thrive in because of the new growth, and then smaller farm operations and hedgerows and things along those lines. Did that seem to be kind of the similar case that played out here in Minnesota? Which,
according to the history from DNR quail history here, is that when the settlers came in way back when, that they really, in their lifestyle of farming, so to speak, really, really encouraged quail. You know, small fields, small grain, a lot of weeds back then and everything. You know, so it really was to quail's advantage.
And a lot of sorghum was planted back then, which really helped. I was reading that in some of the history that I've been looking into.
Sure.
Sorghum was definitely farmed at a much higher rate than it is today.
This is true.
So let's talk current range real quick. You said they're mainly southeast Minnesota. What counties are they really in?
Most of the quail, and we don't have a lot, but the few we do have, and I estimate we have about 1,000 birds in the state, and that's between Houston County, which I think probably has about 80% of that population, and a few there in Fillmore County and also Winona County. So those are the two, the very southeastern counties of the state is where you can find them now. But Houston County is the main one. Give me an idea, too, on that. Let's say back in the 70s and 80s when I really got into it, I was all over. I was in Minnesota River Valley just trying to check where quail were and all that stuff, you know, all that kind of thing. But anyway, I checked with the DNR because it was just so spotty. Yeah, I remember quail a little bit here and there. They said, probably you want to try the southeast. And so anyway, I went down there and, man, you know, it's a huge difference. But I started in, let's say, south of Rochester, Olmsted County, in the southern part of Olmsted, you know, with the Goodhue County, all the, you know, Wabasha County. And what I did at that time, and I still do it now too, I work with high school students, mainly FFA kids, farm kids, so to speak. And I ask them, I go to that class and I ask them, and I take a picture of a bobwhite quail, and at that time I could imitate the way they whistle, you know. But anyway, so yeah, you know, I think I've heard that and all. So every now and then of those are 4 or 5 counties, I'd go to, let's say, Wabasha County, Goodhue County, and all those places. I think I've heard them. So I asked a show of hands. Let's say you're 20, 30 kids in a class. And let's just say Wabasha County. Maybe 1 or 2 would show their hands. This is back in the 70s. And I get down to Fillmore County, pretty much the same thing. Not a whole bunch, you know. Yeah, we see them and we hear them. Winona County, same thing. Long story short, when I got to Houston County, and I went to Spring Grove High School, never will forget it. Okay, about 30 kids. How many of you guys ever heard of seeing quail? About 30, 90% raised their hand. Couldn't believe it, son of a gun, you know. Yeah, we see them, we hear them too and all. Same thing, I went over to Caledonia, which is in Houston County too. Same thing. Yeah, we see them. So it's a huge difference from Fillmore County to Houston County to Winona. And you get out of those 3 and they just don't exist, so to speak. But down there, and again, the numbers have really tremendously gone down since that time and all. But, oh, yeah, it was no doubt. And then you go to talk to local farmers. Oh, yeah, we see them, we hear them and all that type of stuff. All the time, no problem. I begin to see them and I begin to hear them and everything. And I did see my first brood of quail. It was probably about 85 when I saw my first. And it was just by accident. Stopped on the roadside when I was down there. I was going to have lunch one day. And I said, I think I'll just sit here. By the way, it's just by the Cold Roots place where we were talking about. Just a little north of there. So I'm sitting there because I know they've seen and heard quail quite a bit.
Sure.
All of a sudden, I look down and it's probably about 50 yards away from me. I'm sitting in my truck and everything. I said, geez, a little bird came out of the weeds and everything, about 10 feet out. And pretty soon she came out a little bit more. And all of a sudden, these little guys ran out. I put my binoculars, man, that's a quail. You know, and so she didn't see me, and I'm just sitting in the truck, and I must sit there about 15 minutes or so, and I guess she felt it was safe to come. But that was the first brood I had ever seen right there in Houston County and all, you know.
That still seems to kind of be the stronghold.
Yeah, yeah. Although it shifted a bit now. It was a Spring Grove area. Now we got Jefferson Ridge, which is Jefferson County, and then we also have Mound Prairie, not Township, Jefferson Township and Mound Prairie Township, pretty much are the two hot spots. And then you get over by the town of Houston, too. There's quite a few sightings over there. And the Black Hammer area is another area where we got quite a few. But the Spring Grove area, oh, man, that was just, you talk to people, oh, yeah, I see them all the time, so.
So how far is, like, Spring Grove from this Jefferson and Mound Prairie Township?
I would say that's from Jefferson to about 15 miles apart.
Oh, so it's not right there. It's
and Mound Prairie is about 20 miles.
Okay.
Black Hammer, the other location, that's about 10 miles. So they're not right there and everything, But I do remember County Road 27 out of Spring Grove, man, that was a hot spot for quail. I mean, it was just really just all the farmers saw them. I never forget once, too, I came up on a place, I swung around the farm there on County Road 27. And, I just thought I'd stop there and ask this lady whether she had seen a herd quail. But anyway, as I pulled in, it was late summertime, and I saw a covey running underneath her corn crib. And that got me so excited. And I'm seeing this, gee, so I asked her. I had a book and everything. I said, I don't think I've ever seen him. I don't know. And I understand, people don't, they're not looking and all. So, gee, I just saw a covey about 12 birds.
In your front yard.
Anyway, I went back, that next spring and so, oh, yeah, I'm hearing them now. I really do hear one since I brought it up to her. And that following winter, what I did, I figured I'm just going to take some because I heard the food. The snow gets deep here, of course, in wintertime. Made a nice place for cover and all kinds of stuff for quail, good habitat. I'm just going to put some corn out to make sure, Long story short, that following spring, I never heard so much quail whistling. Man, they were whistling all over the place. That corn really made a difference. They had the conifers, these evergreen trees back there, a lot of brush, a lot of weeds, just good habitat, for quail and all, Now it's all grown up, and it's just quail you don't
matured and
yep,
kind of past its prime.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about the chapters in Minnesota for Quail Forever. How many are there? And that type of thing?
We only have two chapters, one here in the metro area and the other one in southeastern Minnesota, down in Houston County and the Fillmore County area. The metro area is mainly concerned about getting youth outdoors. That's our big emphasis there. Now, Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever, they're very flexible as far as how the chapters are really run or managed, so to speak. If you want to just go, hey, we want to get a lot of kids scholarships, you can do that. We want to get a canoe group going, you can do whatever you want to do. It's just getting kids outdoors. That's the main emphasis. No child left indoors is one of the slogans they have going. And so anyway, we just look at the metro group. Not a lot they can do as far as quail specifically, but we do get the metro children out, the youth out, and they're planting pollinator seeds, and they're helping us to build brush piles. And we have a property in Inver Grove Heights where we really pretty much get the kids out where they can get some kind of natural connection. Other than that, we take them horseback riding, we take them trap shooting because we really like to let them learn how to shoot guns and stuff. I take them tubing in the wintertime, we take them fishing during the spring and summer. So a lot of activities that the metro kids have going. Outdoor activities we have going.
Sure.
Southeast is a little different there. Specifically, it's more geared toward building habitat for quail in that part of the country, in that part of the state. And so we have the kids out there building brush piles. The adults, we get out and cut the trees and everything. We do some edge feathering, but we have a lot of brush, and we have the kids to build the brush piles. But quail love brush piles. And then they also plant pollinator seeds, too. And so they work with us primarily on that down southeast. So both kind of outdoor oriented.
Sure.
More interested in quail in the southeast than here in the metro area.
Sure. So the southeast chapter, are they mainly landowners? Are they hunters? Are they just bird enthusiasts?
They're mainly landowners / hunters.
Okay.
All pretty much 90% of the people hunt down there. They're hunters,
right.
So, and the children, all of them, they're all the hunters, man. They like being outdoors and all, And so we take them out of class, basically field trip type thing as we get them out.
Oh, cool.
And work and all. And so that's the southeast.
Excellent. So how are funds for these two chapters raised that ultimately go back into
Yeah, that's where our chapters, we had banquets here ever since we existed, and we still exist, of course, now. But since COVID-19 last year, boy, that threw a monkey wrench in banquets and stuff. So we were not able to generate any extra funds to do the things we wanted to do. So we've come up now with a kind of a new formula where we have on our website that people can donate if they'd like to help us out or become a member of Quail Forever too. So that's how we generate. Basically, the traditional way of all the chapters, deer, turkey, and all the rest of them, it's been banquets. And of course, Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever, the same thing. But COVID-19 threw a monkey wrench in a lot of that stuff.
Sure. So before pre-COVID, let's just call it.
Yeah.
Were you having fairly good turnouts to a lot of these banquets, or?
Yeah, banquets have been very well attended. We had our highest number. We averaged in the Southeast, for instance, about 160 to 180. And 2019, the last one we had down there, because we couldn't have it last year, we had over 200 people.
Wow.
In the Southeast. Here in the Metro, a little different. We get probably 80, 90 people. It's just not that many because it's mainly what it is. The Metro area, we connected mainly with churches.
Okay.
We have the kids from the churches. And so we just don't have that outreach as like it is extensive in the Southeast.
Yeah.
So we don't have that many people.
Little different demographic when everybody's a farmer or landowner down there versus in the city.
Sure.
Probably not as much. So, all right. So when you have a lot of these, funds that are potentially raised up here, is a lot of those dollars going down to the Southeast to help with projects? Or I know you mentioned you're doing a lot of stuff with the kids mainly.
Yeah, both chapters, we try to work together. Give it an example here. We wanted the Farm Bill wildlife biologists to come on board. And our Southeast chapter was instrumental in getting Eric Russell. He's our guy down there now, the Farm Bill wildlife biologist. And anyway, part of the agreement is when you have a person like that on board, the chapter should kick in so much money per year. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have a banquet last year down there. And so we really were kind of short on funds. And so National Quail Forever asked, can we do something to help Eric to stay on board? And we said, man, we want to keep this guy down here now. Anyway, we had more funds in our Metro chapter. So we decided, hey, why don't the Metro chapter give a couple $1,000s to help out with Eric? And so we just helped out down there with keeping Eric on board.
Sure.
And so, but that was because, again, we couldn't have a banquet down there, nor did we have one here.
Right.
But we were financially more stable here than down there.
Okay.
So we helped out.
Excellent. So can you tell me a little bit about what are some of the chapter projects? What do they do in Southeast there?
Southeast is primarily getting landowners enrolled into CRP programs, initiatives. And we have the CP33, which is a specific initiative, federal program geared for Bobwhite quail. With that program, they really want to help quail to improve. Now, I'm not trying to be critical of them at all, but it's been on the ground now. It's been in existence for over 10 years. And our quail numbers are still the same all over. This is a national program, national initiative. And so the numbers really have not improved. And my view is that they need to tweak it a bit. But anyway, we like to still sign people up. And right now we have over 400 acres enrolled into that CP33 in Houston County, which is pretty good. But we still haven't seen the results that we'd like to see. And my personal feeling, I think we need to tweak it a bit. And what I mean about that, it's we need to add some more brush to that initiative. And right now it's more of a forbs, warm season grasses, which they're good. Sure. They're good for quail, but they need to have that brush component, and it's just not there doing a job for quail.
Especially up here where we have a little harsher winters.
Yep.
I was going to
say the south. So.
I was going to say, I got to imagine that the brush component here is a much greater factor than, say, in Kansas or something along those lines, because that brush area still allows them typically non-snow covered area to scratch.
Sure. Oh yeah. And it's just it's needed all over, but here extremely important. You get the food cover, and that brush in wintertime is extremely, like my experience, like I say, back on County Road 27, man, I know what that does. You get that food and cover together, man, you got really some dynamite stuff going on for quail.
Habitat.
That's what our big push is trying to get that going and all, I think, and I see the farmers, you look at the prices of the different commodities. Let's just take corn, for instance, for a guy to sign up, let's say a landowner, farmer, you're looking at that, the prices, what they get is not quite the same as, let's say, he's going to put it in pure corn. Although I see, too, what the government is saying, well, we're going to take these acres that's really not that productive. Let's sign those up. But somehow that's still not working. And my view is this, and it's a little bit more of a personal view. I just think that we who are into wildlife need to probably promote and sell and encourage landowners. Man, just having quail, the pheasant, songbirds, that's good entertainment. So, yes, it might cost you a little bit of money. But when you raise that, well, let's just take you over a cornfield, a typical cornfield, and you're going to get, let's say, $5,000 profit out of that cornfield. Now, what are you going to do with that $5,000? You're probably going to go to a Vikings game or Twins game, you're going to spend it, which is okay to do that. You're going to buy extra toy or whatever around. And, you look at that and say, well, what's the difference? If a guy tucks, well, okay, I spent $1,000 last year just say going and see the Vikings and the Twins. What if I take that? Rather than doing that, take $500 and I'm going to put it into habitat and I'm going to have my wildlife out there. So it's the same thing as how you want to use it, but I don't think we are aggressive enough pushing it. That is a great selling point, that wildlife, just tremendous good entertainment on your land. Right. We look at, no, ain't nothing wrong with getting, whatever that extra toy you want. I look at us right now as Americans, and this is just the way we are. If you consider how many storage facilities we built in the last 15 years, and that's because we got so much stuff, we can't even keep it in our homes.
Right.
But it's the farming, the same thing. Well, I need to buy more stuff. I need to do more, but it's all coming from that land as far as the farmer is concerned. So you're getting the money, but it's what you're doing with it. And my encouragement to the farmers and landowners, well, you know what? Do I really need that extra whatever, that extra set of golf clubs? Do I really need to go to a casino? I'm going to blow $1,000, $600. But when it comes to the land, well, it's too expensive. But dude, you're doing, what are you doing? Same thing. We just need to promote, I think, the beauty of wildlife and how much it's just the quality of life that we need to have with us. And I just think it's more than just hunting. I love to hunt, don't get me wrong, but to go out and hear the bobwhite, to hear the pheasants, hear the meadowlarks. By the way, meadowlarks, that's another species, numbers way down. But to hear all these different birds and to see them, to me, it's just great entertainment. Right. So I think looking at it, trying to encourage the landowner, man, that's great when you have those grouse, the quail, the pheasant, turkeys, all that great variety there. Yes, it might cost you a little bit, but you're going to be spending that money on something else. Right. We just say, hey, let's spend it on wildlife.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that too. So not growing up, for schooling, I went out to South Dakota, and a lot of my roommates were all from the same small town. It was kind of your, 3 or 4 towns make up the one high school class, and those classes were still only 12 to 18 people graduating, so very small. But the guy ended up being one of my best buddies. But small farm, they maybe had 1,800 to 2,000 acres. When he went off to school, his dad wasn't going to be able to handle much of it, so he just turned and put a lot of it into CRP, food plots, and really set it up for,
sure.
They were deer hunters. They had pheasants growing up, but really in my buddy's lifetime, just, the storms of, was it 95, 96, 97, really wiped a lot of that stuff out. And so I come along and we kind of hit it off, and he's like, yeah, we do a little bit of bird hunting and whatnot. And I was like, oh, we should, I got my dog out here. Let's go. And they ended up having 900 acres in CRP and food plots. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal pheasant hunting. I know the first time we went out, the 3 of us shot 7 birds. And I know his dad was like, 2 years ago, you'd be lucky if you'd have seen 7 birds all day.
Sure.
So fast forward like a year or two, and starting to get to know a lot of the other landowners around there, and just kids being kids, and hanging out and whatnot. And my buddy was kind of mentioning, he's like, yeah, so and so, this farmer, their kids and whatnot are always asking to go hunt our property. And he's like, it doesn't take much just to throw that little low spot into CRP or slough or some sort of water, or not cut down that little bit of trees and stuff like that. So it's when you were talking about kind of, leaving some of these areas alone and the entertainment value, it's like it absolutely is. And that's coming from my buddy who is a farmer, and things have changed a little bit now since he's back on the farm and has family of his own, but they still have quite a bit of their property in CRP and wildlife and that type of thing. And I think they've even taken some advantage. I know Pheasants Forever had some of their what do they call it? Precision ag. Oh yeah, I want to say is where they can kind of go through some of the farmland and find your real high productive areas and areas where you may be losing. Yep. So does that, you see that in Minnesota kind of when you're?
Yeah, I think so. That's happening too, but again, I just think we need to look at it. And I guess from a stewardship, I look at it from a stewardship that, we own this land. Let's just take the average landowner, farmer. You own that land, and I don't think money is the whole driving force here. And I just think we have to look at wildlife as, again, a part of, just good quality of life that we need to have around. And I might have to take, as a landowner or farmer, a little extra step to get that quality that we want to see, the diversity in wildlife. And I think, because especially when you look at habitat destruction, it's going on tremendously, and it's impacting wildlife, over and over and over again. I know Cornell Cornell University in New York, they did a study here over the years, and they came out here about 2 years ago, and they found from 1970 to 1970 to 2017, North America, now that includes Canada and U.S., of course, we lost almost 3 billion birds. Mm-hmm. Now, when you're looking at, the different species that we've impacted, human beings we've impacted, I think it says something to us that we need to be more aware of. Guys, we're doing some stuff that we should not be doing. We need to, and the money, you got to have it, but we're overloading and stuff. Like I say, look at all these storage facilities. Something we're doing is not right, and it's impacting wildlife. And eventually, I think it's impacting us too. It's putting too much pressure. But the point is habitat destruction. In fact, I got a deal here, a note from Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever here about a month ago, and they were saying since 2009 until last year, we've lost 53 million acres right here in the U.S. of grassland. Primarily, a lot of that is loss of CRP land.
It's actually one of the biggest motivating factors for why I started this podcast was all of that information that came out. I absolutely felt floored to try to make a difference.
Yeah, we're doing this, and it's just, guys, what does it take to wake us up? I'm just saying this is just too much. You look at the quail numbers, of course, of all the species, the National Audubon Society, no other species has gone down as much as quail is for in the last, let's say, 80 years. Their numbers have dropped tremendously. Yeah, compared to what you used to
80, 83%, something like that.
Yeah, it's really, really
astonishing.
high. Yeah,
I think it's even more like there's 3% left of the native bobwhite quail habitat.
Yeah, in some places, you just don't even see them. Again, when I was down in Mississippi there, and me, my buddy, my uncles, and all brothers, we hunting, man, you find them all over the place. You go down there now, you don't see nothing. It's incredible. Same locations. It's just, they just don't exist. So it's all over. So I'm just saying what we're doing as people is just something we need to take a look at.
And back to your stewardship kind of note, quail in itself is an umbrella species. It's an indicator species. Yep. So if these birds are dwindling, so is the habitat for all the other wildlife.
Yep.
So once you look at kind of a centric approach on some of this stuff, quail almost has to be at kind of top of the list because the deer hunting will improve, the turkey hunting will improve. Yep. Everything around it will improve because what the quail needs, it gives all the other wildlife a fantastic
better chance. Yep. You're exactly right. And that's what we need to look at. So, hey, we need to turn this thing around. Again, and I know we all have to have money to live, but I think we've overdosed on some things that, guys, it's hurting us too much, and so you see the wildlife and eventually it's going to hurt us. Now, getting back to the chemical part too, I remember, I would go down to Memphis again, that's where I'm from, And me and my family, we'd go down there about every other year. And this is back in the 70s and 80s. Man, I'd go drive from here to Rochester, and I have to clean my windshield because so many bugs, This is back in the 70s and 80s. I can go here to St. Louis and don't even have to clean the bugs no more. And so the bug population is down, and you don't have those bugs out there for these chicks to eat when they, hatched on the adult birds too and all, So the insect population really has taken a hit. And I think that's primarily because of the chemicals too. But again, it's what we're doing. And I tell people, life is full of trade-offs. So you're going to get, as a landowner, farmer, you're going to get better yields when you use these chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, and these types of things. No doubt about it, you're going to get. But at the same time, you're going to lose when it comes to natural resources. It's hard to get it all. And I'm not a person on drugs. And from what I understand, drugs make you feel very, very good. But the downside, trade-off, man, it makes you feel very bad. So life got these trade-offs, and we got to look and say, I think we need to back off of this stuff because it's hurting all of us, especially wildlife.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Jeff. I heard recently on another podcast about some success related to sage grouse. Mm-hmm. And again, another indicator species, and the loss of sage habitat across the West has been hammered.
Yeah.
Do you find that your approach working locally seems to be a good mix versus some of the, you look at QF and PF, they've got these big national programs.
Sure.
And I think oftentimes, people have a healthy suspicion of the feds, especially when it comes into doing any work correctly or efficiently sometimes. And so when you get into some of these habitat projects, having that local chapter and the tie into that community who really at the end of the day has the most skin in the game. Do you see that that's kind of the right recipe to make impacts in these areas that you're working on, or is that seem to be a good working model for you?
I think it is. In fact, my contacts with people over the years, man, it's just been great. I tell you, and I'd encourage anybody. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just talking to people and working with them and showing them you support them and everything. You're not against them or anything like that. I mean, it's so inviting and it's so welcoming. It's just, so I've had tremendous success just working with, just these are people like all of us. We all got problems. We all got whatever. And you're trying to help that person solve those problems and all, So I think that we need more people. It's going to cost money, though, to get more, you might say, salespeople on the ground, talking to landowners, talking to farmers, not looking down your nose at them, but hey, I understand that, hey, they got issues and they got challenges, and I understand they got to make a living, but just treating them like human beings, it's just, I come to a position and that's what we look at our Metro chapter. We pretty much a spiritual Christian base. And Abraham, when, at one time, there's some biblical stuff here, when there was a conflict between Abraham's tribesmen and Lot's tribesmen, there was coming a problem. And Abraham stepped in, hey, we shouldn't do this because we're brethren, you got to look at this as my brother. I'm not against a person, it's just, we're going to have different views. But anyway, I just think it's you're going to get a lot more mileage just respecting people and trying to work with them. And that's been my experience. So hats off to the people in the Southeast. I've had great success working with them. I just think they're great people. Nobody's perfect, but they're just great people, I think, from my point of view.
Yeah, no, I again, I'm sorry to interject, but it's having people that have the most skin in the game gets the buy-in and it gets the work done. And then it also shows the benefit to the people who have that skin in the game. And that's really, really important to see that full circle of their time and effort coming back into fruition for them, because I think that builds in a snowball effect.
Sure. I know for sure in Houston County, I want to Fillmore and Winona the same. They all the same. If you had the people out there really to personally talk to somebody, how much more you get done. But the way we're set up, it's just, you don't have the time. You can't put the people out in the fields like that. But we're hurting ourselves when we're not, because, again, you're going to get a lot more from that landowner, and over again, it's getting, well, hey, I can do that. And we're willing to work with them. That's when we got Eric on board. We can come in and do some things with those people and all. So, yeah, it makes a world of difference, I think, if you can put people out in the field and do some things with them.
So you kind of mentioned that the Southeast chapter has done a lot of projects and stuff like that. So how are you choosing these projects? I mean, obviously I know some of it's probably a landowner has some property and wants to do something better, but quail don't necessarily, they're not like a sharp-tailed grouse or a prairie chicken or a pheasant where their home ranges are occupying, sections or townships, in the case of the prairie grouse.
They're very local,
they can make do with 40 acres, 20 acres, 80 acres,
Sure. Well, what we do, we go where the birds are, where we know we got wild birds. Okay. And looking at releasing, some people want to just release them and all, and I'm not against it as such. But anyway, I just think we have a better chance of working with wild birds. The birds we know that they're there, like these 3 or 4 locations, we know for sure we got some substantial quail in those locations. And there's some others scattered around, they just show up out of nowhere, gee, where did this guy come? Where did these birds come from?
When you say substantial, are you talking a covey or 2?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's one location we know we got at least about 3 coveys on this one property, at least 3.
How big is that property?
He's about 160 acres.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty good size now,
Absolutely.
But yeah, generally we try to work around those existing birds that are there more so than just kind of doing things, haphazardly all over. And this year we're going to be starting what we call we're going to establish at least 2, not the covey headquarters, but they are focus areas. And that's an area where, let's say it's going to be, let's say half a township or whatever, and get those people, because we had quail there, try to work together, because as those birds expand out, we want other people to know that this is what the habitat they're going to be having, that they need. And so we're going to do at least 2 focus areas this year down in Houston County.
Okay.
Just getting more people on board and trying to help quail.
How many acres do you think you guys, when you do these projects, how many acres do you think you're impacting in a given year roughly? Are they? I
would say, since we've been in quail forever, I'd say we have over 1,000 acres that we've impacted already, but there's still a lot more to be done. But this year we have a pretty ambitious goal. We want to impact at least 500 acres this year. Wow. So we have these focus groups, we want to get them going. So we think we're going to really up that quite a bit and all. So we need to do more work,
Sure. So when you guys do these projects, for instance, in this focus area, and you said it's roughly half a township?
Township.
Okay.
Sometimes it comprises another one because it could be on the edge of a township.
Right.
It's just the edge area and all.
You kind of got to go where, like you said, the birds are. So actually, real quick note on that is, I think most people probably listening to this who are outdoorsmen or women and hunters and fishermen kind of understand the follies of releasing pen-raised birds or any of that. I don't know if you're familiar with the Rolling Plains quail facility down in Texas.
No.
Okay.
I've done some. Yeah, I've read a little bit about that.
Okay, so Dr. Dale Rounds, guys, and they've started looking at doing transplant of wild coveys into suitable areas. I know, following some of the Pheasants Forever stuff, they're really talking in some of the states like Georgia and Tennessee that traditionally had a lot of birds, or Arkansas, that some of these biologists are going, they're like, man, the habitat's there, but there's nothing to start with.
Sure.
So they've been looking at, doing some transplants.
Sure.
Has that ever crossed the mind of anything up here? Or are we just too on the fringe and probably not going to happen?
Yeah, we thought about that a few years ago. It didn't work out too well.
Okay.
It's just one of those things. What we were going to do, it really is a great practice if you can get into that. And we call it back then transplanting. Now they call it translocating. Same thing, different name. But we did this here, oh my goodness, right after we became a chapter. We went down to Missouri and we saw what their habitat was like down there. We got some connection with the people in Missouri. And Missouri does a pretty good job as far as quail management. So I personally contacted, the guys there in Missouri, got to know some of them and all. And I contacted our DNR and I said, well, what if our chapter, we got the manpower and we can go down and trap the birds and bring them back up here and all. And our DNR was for it. our DNR was for it. And I said, you know what? That's a good idea because, boy, you need to bring in, different bloodlines here and there because any species. And the guy, I want to call his name, but the guy at the DNR said, we do it right now. We still go down to Illinois and trap some turkeys and bring them up here, transplant them in different locations here. So they were all for it. Everything was go. So we really into this thing. We had the habitat structure and everything. We know the locations down there and all. And it did not come to fruition. Somebody got to the DNR, and I won't say who. Say, hey, they don't do that stuff. We were going to do it as a chapter. But they said, no, you don't do that stuff. And so I called the guy back at the DNR, and he acted as though he never talked to me. I couldn't believe it.
And that was in Minnesota DNR or Missouri?
Minnesota DNR. The guys in Missouri, they were all set for it. They were ready to go. But I'm just saying, we've had so many roadblocks over the years. I don't want to get into all the specifics. It's not that good. But yes, we
could probably do a whole podcast on just that.
Oh, man. Okay, gee. So, we definitely wanted to go that route and all that, but it didn't work,
Sure. Well, it seems like it's becoming, I don't say more popular, but it's kind of interesting to read some of these reports on how translocated birds are transplanted, whatever you want to call them.
Sure. What Pennsylvania is currently doing, they're working on a project now with some other states. They want, because the birds now, as they call it, extirpated. They're not even there now.
Right.
And so they're working with a few states right now, southern states, to bring some birds in, translocate those birds again, the habitat right now. So that is a good way of, bringing the bird numbers back up. Getting the habitat. Habitat is so extremely important, So get that structure, and once you get that, then I think you have a good chance.
Right. And so you said you had roughly 500-acre goal for this year is what you're trying to fix. So that's what do the chapters need to, you think, what resources do they need? I mean, I'm sure financially is always a big one, but what else do you need to, you think, achieve that goal?
The basic thing is getting the land, and we have the landowners so far, connected with us. It's just now putting all the pieces together. But what I see now, we need, for instance, just take 15 acres. 15 acres is generally, and that's Missouri's kind of guidelines, how you manage quail. If you take 15 acres, of those 15 acres, you're going to need about 5 to 6 different, what we call covey headquarters. And that's where the birds hang around. That's the most time. That's the brushy areas around some nice grassy, weedy type sites. And so you're going to have those in those specific areas. So we have to build those up for the quail to stay there. So you start at 15, and then you move going on up to 40 acres, the next step. Anything over 40 acres, you're really pushing it there. So, but if you can do that 15 to 40 acres, just look at those areas and try to concentrate on those and get those to maximum capacities for its habitat needs, the various components they need, and you have a pretty good chance of getting it. So that's what we're doing right
15-acre chunks is kind of what you're shooting for in Minnesota. Interesting.
Per site, so to speak,
Sure.
Per location, yeah.
Okay. And how far do you, I mean, again, I know we kind of touched on it, that they don't need a huge area, but I know you don't want to have so much fragmented, it doesn't do you much good to have something here and then 2 miles away. It's,
That's the reason we're trying to get the focus areas established, because once you get that going, you only got, let's say, a mile or two, and the bird's got somewhere else that's suitable to go, not 5-6 miles, so you get those focus areas established, and then you got a better chance of birds expanding.
So you mentioned earlier CP33. Has that program, you feel it's helped with some of this covey headquarters, or in loafing sites, that type of thing? Or
here again, the CP33 is primarily kind of a herbaceous type. In other words, a grass forest type mix. The woody cover that the birds need, that's really not in there. They have a portion in there they call the you can't plant shrubs into that mix. But here again, my view is that I think the federal people probably should have looked at it a little different. You want to keep that on the outside, because what they're requiring you to do is to mow or disc that site every 3 years. Well, if you plant, let's say, shrubs in there, let's say dogwoods or whatever.
Right.
Well, then you got to mow them down. Well, you can't do that. So you have to, they want the shrubs there, but it's the way they got it structured, it doesn't work, because you got to mow that stuff down or burn it, and it's not going to work. So what we do, and this is what we feel is so important, is on the edge of that CP33 land. That's when you come in with some edge feathering. All you do is drop the trees on the edge, and you got that woody component that the birds need. So yeah, you got the herbaceous stuff, the forbs and the warm season grasses, which they need. But now you got the woody component. And right now the CP33 doesn't, it just doesn't consist of that. And so we push that pretty strong, So I'm okay with the CP33. I just think it needs to be tweaked a bit. And my own personal feeling, and I talked to a biologist down in Iowa on this, and my feeling is his the same thing. I think they need to increase more forbs. Grasses are going to grow,
Right.
Really just the forbs, the wildflowers and things to bring in the insects is what the quail need. And one thing too you can do, and this is what we tell the farmers in the Southeast, if you don't have CP33, then what we encourage you to do, if you got some vacant land, you want to disc that land up. Preferably you want to spray it first. I know this chemical's kind of,
sure,
but you want to kill that dormant grass. Then you just disc it. And then what's going to happen, you're going to have the annual weeds come up, primarily ragweeds, and that's the one you really want. I know people hate weeds, but the quail love that stuff. Man, they love ragweeds and brush. You get those, you're hitting a home run every time. When you get those two combinations, man, they go for that stuff.
Hey, Thurman, you're supposed to use the word forbs.
Forbs, okay, forbs. Okay, that's true. Rather than weeds, okay. Okay, I hear you.
I was told that by a couple of biologists.
I know.
Guys,
I know.
Guys I interviewed down in Missouri, they're like, yeah, people don't really like weeds. So we use the term
weed.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I hear you.
So you'd touched on dogwood a little bit. Can you kind of walk us through, like, okay, here's your 15-acre target goal. What does your project look like when you go into that? Maybe talk about the edge feathering. Mm-hmm. If you really are planting, I assume to some degree you're trying to work with what's there.
Yeah.
With the exception of maybe you're doing some extra
you want
disking.
to establish the covey headquarters. That's number one. Without a covey headquarters, they just won't handle it. In other words, you just take Kansas or anywhere. You just got open fields, plenty of grasses, forbs, and there's no brush. You won't have a quail. But when you have to put the brush in strategic locations, specific locations, then you're going to bring the quail in. So you start with the covey headquarters. That's where they're going to spend most of their time there. And those covey headquarters should be no further than 150 feet. We here in Minnesota, I'm looking at probably 80 to 90 feet, but 150 feet apart at max. So they got different locations they can bounce around and go to. Next thing, if you don't have that, you can use, for instance, like the wild plum can be a covey headquarters. False indigo, which they use heavily down in Missouri, and that's a good one there too. And that's a native for here in Minnesota. You can use that. That's a shrub that grows just like the dogwoods. You can use the dogwoods, the red dogwoods, the gray dogwoods, any of the dogwoods work very well. Sumac can work good for covey headquarters. So it's the woody component that you're getting there for those birds that they like to just go to. As a rule, what you like to do is, just take sumac, for instance. Sumac has a stem density that's really great for quail. So if you had the forbs around that sumac, that's an ideal deal. The only problem with sumac is when wintertime comes, you got 5-10 inches of snow. That's not good enough, So you got to have some brush where they can get underneath. Ideally, what we like to have is have some conifers very close by. The birds can go into those conifers. And we do find in southeastern Minnesota that the quail rely on those conifers quite a bit for wintertime protection and all. So conifers are very important here. Going to southern states, not so much, but here for wintertime survival, conifers, along with the regular woody type, rough, brushy stuff. They really love that.
I noticed, like, we Brian and I have been to Kansas for the last number of years here, and you really don't find much for conifer tree. Maybe this straggler cedar here and there.
A couple cedars here,
yeah. But it's I've always kind of noticed, like, big cottonwood type trees. I don't know what it is about that. It can be a little 3-acre patch around that thing, and at least where we go, it's like that thing has quail around it. And now there's obviously a mix of
it's got the Phragmites and other stem densities
it's very tall Some of it's very heavy, thick weeds that they can, I'm sure, is kind of serving as their thermal cover as well. Because, I mean, I know trying to walk through it last year, I just said, you guys get ready. I couldn't even shoulder a gun, but I mean, it was cool to hear all the birds go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they love that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you get a city person, they look at it as a mentor. Oh, man, mow that stuff down. Guys, that's good stuff, you know.
Yeah.
You're lucky to go out, look at some of these old fields and everything is all grown up, man. That's good stuff, you know, for quail and other birds and all. But people look at that, man, this thing should look like a golf course, you know. Mow that stuff down. So anyway, it's just a change of mindset. So what we have to do.
Yeah. So, and obviously, you know, on that, it's
sure
our Covey headquarters up here are going to vastly different from, say, Texas or Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma.
They will.
That type of thing.
They will.
So you've obviously been, you know, dealing with quail forever, and quail specifically in Minnesota for 40, 50 years.
Yeah, very close. Yeah, for sure over 40. Yeah.
So what are some of the highlights that you've seen? Like, obviously there's been so much bad, you know, with you know, declining in range and that type of stuff, but I'm sure there's got to be some little golden nuggets that give you a little bit of hope.
You know, seeing that brood that year back, and that's hard to see a brood. And, you know, we keep a count of different sightings of quail every year in Houston County. And we average about 3 to 4 brood sightings per year. They're just not hard, and they're not easy to see. But anyway, for me to see a brood, that was really, really a highlight of my year. And also, too, to go down and hear the birds whistling, too. Again, that's a really, really highlight. And to see them, you know, those are just really some great times and great moments. I say our banquets, those have been just great for us. Just good participation, good turnouts. And just the people, I think I just ran across and made a lot of good friends down there and all, you know. So I would put that as probably the highlights, my greatest highlights.
Sure. Where you've done some of these projects, do you feel like your effort is being rewarded? Are the birds at least staying steady? Or, I mean, obviously I know in Minnesota, weather is always a big issue. I mean, you just never know what you're going to get, especially in the winter. You know, it can be virtually no snow, or you can have 30 inches. And so, you know,
I know,
on a little bird like that. But do you feel like things are...
We're holding steady. I like to see us improve a little bit more. Now we have Eric on board, and we have these focus areas coming on the scene. I feel optimistic, you know, but we've been holding steady and all, you know. So
how many focus areas are in that, you know, the southeast part of the state, or is this kind of the first?
This will be the first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we don't have any. Now, the focus area, Missouri is the one that really initiated that some years ago, and they've done very well with their focus areas. And so we thought we'd bring it here. We've gone down to Missouri, our chapter members, we had about 6 of us gone down there about 3 or 4 times on field days they've had, just got a wealth of information, you know.
Sure.
I remember one situation we went in, one field trip, we wanted to say, hey, we wanted to go to this place where we wanted the very best quail manager in the state, habitat manager, you know. And I was talking to one of the biologists down there, and she told me, well, this one guy, he won the national for being the best in the whole country for quail habitat. And his name is Jeff Sharan. So we got to meet this guy. So we went over. Now, he was at that time with Quail Unlimited, when Quail Unlimited existed. Okay. So we went down there and met him, man. And this guy, he told us, well, what he did, he started off, but he went down to Florida and Georgia, somewhere in that area, when he started, and he found out from down there that they managed for quail, for every square foot, there's got to be something here that's going to benefit quail. And he walked us around, he showed us his place. And he had, I mean, the quail were like chickens all in the yard. I mean, they were all over the place. Now, on what he specialized in down there, 2 things he did. He went for the false indigo, which is a shrub, like dogwood, so to speak. And he went for, I would say, the forb that you were mentioning. Now, this guy say he's allergic to him. This forb. So, you know, I plant this stuff.
I'm allergic to ragweed too.
Yeah.
I still love it.
The birds are safe. They're never getting hunted, right?
I know. And he was, man, this stuff works for quail and all. But again, oh, man, I don't want that stuff. But ragweed and false indigo, those two things that he really attributes to. Well, now, he's the best in the country. We thought he was the best, but Quail Unlimited at the time put him as best in the country. Yeah. This guy had, we went there, man, I never saw that many quail. Just driving down the road, crossing the road, you hear whistling all over the place and everything, Now, he had a portion of his land strictly for quail, and another, he was really into ducks, too, so he had some good duck habitat on another portion of his land. So he had quite a acres. I think he was about 300-some acres. So he was really into it big time. But I want to see firsthand what it really looks like. So, this is good stuff here,
Yeah, you talk about, obviously with farms becoming more corporate farms, it's like you just said 300 acres, and he had birds all over the place.
Yep.
And you had some of these farms that are tens of thousands of acres now. It's like, what's 300 acres?
I know.
Again, money and,
sure.
I get it.
The guy's interest. Some people who, just like some people are into antique automobiles. They would put a lot of money into getting that vehicle just to where they don't think anything of it. So the landowner, again, just take him, hey, I want my birds. I'm going to put the money and the efforts in doing that. So we were fortunate enough to meet this guy and all. And there are some guys. We have a guy, Paul Schutte, in our group. Boy, he's done outstanding. He's not a Jeff Sharan, though, but he's done a heck of a job on his property. He's in Eden Prairie. Not Eden Prairie, Mountain Prairie, there in Houston County. Now, he has about three to four quail coveys on his property. He's done a phenomenal job.
Was that the 160 acre?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So tell me, like, what can the average landowner or farmer, or, just even a non-landowner do, to help?
Well, the landowner, I would say, if they can become more active as far as producing good quail habitat, and like you were saying, that's going to benefit a lot of other species, So it's not just quail, but you're helping a lot of other species. So that's what we encourage the landowner to do. But the regular, Joe Doe, Jane Doe, whoever, if they wanted to just make a contribution to our organization, we do the work too. So they might not say they can get out in the fields like we can, so they can help financially, or we encourage the landowner to become more active as far as improving his wildlife habitat and all. So that's the big thing. Is we coin the phrase improving conditions, and that's what we're trying to do here. Is we look at habitat. This habitat can be improved, and the average person looking and say, "Well, I can't get out there, but I can help you guys financially." Well, you're helping to improve the habitat, so you become an improver too.
Sure.
So it's something for everybody that they can be a part of it.
So if a landowner calls you and says, "Hey, I heard or saw quail," like from your standpoint, like what do you do next?
Yeah. I go there like last Friday. This one property there, and then this guy had quail in his place. Moved there about 10 years ago, and he didn't know he had quail on his place. Blackhammer Township in Houston County. But he's had quail every year. He sees them and hears them and all. So anyway, he was saying, man, and this was a mild winter except for February. A couple of weeks in February, it was pretty tough.
Yeah.
But he said, I never heard so much quail whistling as this. Man, I've heard them, but boy, this is something else. And so what I did, and I've been to his place a number of times. He has good habitat. But I've always wanted to meet his neighbor. So what I did last Friday, I went down and met his neighbor and everything, and getting him involved as far as what he can start doing now to help quail. Because the birds, once they're there, they're just going to move out. They don't know what. So he's gotten already a surplus. Right. And so we want them to be able to, go to a location where the habitat is continually going to be good and all. So that's what we do. We go so they see a bird, heard a bird, birds or whatever. If I don't go, Eric go, Paul will go, one of us will get out there and just take a look and see what we can do.
When you're doing these, I assume you see a number of quail at least, or bump into a covey here and there and see some wildlife. So I'm sure that's just got to be a blast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, to be able to see them and to hear them too and everything. And I know work with the landowners. I just love going on the land and working with them, showing them what they can do and everything, It's kind of like my wife. She watches this HGTV and talking. I don't know if you've ever seen how these guys move the stuff around. We can do this, and we can do the same thing with habitat. They show these guys, okay, we can move this over here. We need to see those conifers over here. We want to increase it, so we can do the same thing with habitat and all.
Yeah, you should talk to my wife, because that's what she had us do all here.
Move
this, move that. They're great at that. So.
Oh yeah, they love that stuff.
No, I admire that you're able to go down and assess that piece of property.
Sure, definitely.
And especially when he broke it down into just 15 acres, it's like, I some of that southeast Minnesota is such rolling hills. You're going to naturally kind of have some of those, heavy ravines. That's like, well, you're not planting crops in that. And,
Well, and I just bought 32 acres over in western Wisconsin in what is actually traditionally historical range of bobwhite. And that was really part of my reason for trying to kind of create this native bird story. And when Jeff you guys hooked up, this kind of fell into place. And I from everything I heard from the Wisconsin DNR, I was very, well, let's just say disingenuous, disheartened. Mm-hmm. You're telling me I 32 acres, I got 2 opportunities to impact.
And you've got a quail headquarters right in the center of that.
Headquarters.
I know. I might have to talk afterwards a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah. So I know you talked about it a little before, but can you expand a little more on some of the kids' involvement with through Quail Forever and when you're doing these?
Kelly just loves hitting that microphone.
Young dog, she's got to stretch. I'm just glad she hasn't knocked it over yet. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, like how many kids do you typically have?
It's so encouraging because I never will forget. And this time it's just a highlight here. It's about maybe 7-8 years ago. We take kids out on different farms and all and doing certain projects with the farmers. Just during class time, so it's a field trip. And this one kid, he enjoyed it so much, he told the farmers, man, if you need help on the weekends, I'll be willing to come in. You're not charged. I'm not charged. I just want to do it and everything.
Right.
And just kept saying that now. So it's so encouraging now, The same thing in the metro kids here. We have kids that love it so much. They just love being outdoors and everything, and they just really eat that up. My challenge has been is that the kids love being out there. It's just getting adults to spend the time with them, because we adults are so busy. Nobody got the time to do nothing. The kids love going around with the adults and all, so they have an interest,
Sure.
So what you're saying is that you need some adult volunteers in the Twin Cities to help your kids.
There you go. All over,
Sure.
Yep, you're exactly right.
So when you have these kids come out to, in Southeast, I know you said you kind of do these habitat days, landowners seem pretty receptive, and I would assume maybe it's not just kids, but in general, when you're coming down, they seem pretty receptive to the idea of improving.
I did have one, though, too. He was, he was a little reluctant. We had the kids there. He was similar to the other guy. I don't know whether they were on air at that time, but anyway, his farm was not, there was no one living there. And he had quite a spread, a lot of potential. And the kid part, getting the youth there bothered him because he just thought somebody would come and vandalize the place if he's not around. So he backed out. He wanted to be a part of it, but I see his point, because he was kind of right on the main road. The house was back in, but it looked like somebody lived there, but there was nobody living there.
Okay.
And he just, no, I can't do it. No, I understand that. So that happens.
Well, it sounds like that southeast part of the state, I mean, the landowner involvement they have there seems to be pretty positive. And when you said you had that many people attending a banquet, I was kind of shocked. I know we attend the Rough Grouse Society banquets in the Twin Cities here, and there aren't that many people in the Twin Cities going to. Now, granted, you get out a little more, and it's, but yeah, to have that kind of turnout, I think is rather impressive, honestly.
Especially when you consider like the grouse being Minnesota state bird almost.
Yeah, you're right. That's the bird is up there, as far as people, I love that.
It's for hunting opportunities. I mean, it's definitely there, and we don't really have much of a hunting opportunity with bobwhite here, so that's really kind of shocking and surprising.
Yeah, it is.
Are they doing is pretty much all your work done on private lands, or is there really any support from the DNR for?
Yeah, we don't. I wish we could. You look at Houston County. Now we do have one. It's really uncomfortable. Yeah. We do have one land there. Excuse me. That was donated to Quail Forever here about 8 years ago, and it'll be a public land now. So it was private. And the guy, anyway, his father passed away, and he hunted quail way back when, and so he wanted to do something. Anyway, they donated 76 acres to the DNR, to Quail Forever. Quail Forever in turn donated to the DNR, so it's public land. And that land, we've been working on it, trying to do some things. The sad thing about it, like you got, what if I could wave the magic wand, what would I do?
We'll get to that question, but yeah.
But anyway, that would be a property, we'd like to do some work there and everything, but that's the only private land. Now, the Whitewater Wildlife Management Area, which is up in Wabasha County, that's an area that we could really do some work on. But again, it's kind of out of our range right now. So that's private land.
Real quick, so the landowner donated Quail Forever. Mm-hmm. Quail Forever gives the DNR. And they won't let you work on it?
No. Well, let me explain. Okay, here's the deal. Now, they're okay with it, but, they donated the land, but there's a creek, Winnebago Creek runs between some of it. So from the main road, you can't cross that creek. So you have to go to private property to get onto it. What we like to do is build a bridge where we can get over there. That's what I'm just saying.
I got you.
Yeah, it's not that they don't have anything, so we just like to build a bridge to get over there. And so we get over there. We just work with the landowner. The whaling guys, same one that donate. It's come in anytime. But going back in there, dirt roads and all, it's rainy. It's a little different.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, and Thurman, thanks for sticking with us here. I know you kind of touched on it before, but you obviously do a lot with kids. You mentioned No Child Left Indoors initiative. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Yeah, that came from PFQF, and which is a good initiative. And the idea is to get as many children, young people, kids outdoors as possible, all of them, so to speak. And we feel the same way. Most of us, and I put myself as super old timer, we grew up outdoors, and that's where you just kind of get connected to life, I think. And right now, I have nothing against technology. I'm not a techno type person, but I think they've kind of overdosed on technology, and we need to get them outdoors where they can really live some. So we get them out as much as we can, the Metro kids and, of course, the Southeast kids. So the whole idea is getting kids outdoors, whether it's canoeing.
It's like my personal mission.
Seriously,
to get these kids off video games, it's been, like I said, a personal mission of mine.
But I think the challenge is, the big thing is, like I say, the kids don't mind just finding the adults that's going to take the time, And everybody's so busy. You got your own kids and everything, and right now in our society, you got so many single parents, and they just, and some of them female parents, and they just can't do that. They can't take them out like the guys can. So I think we have to kind of look at it. It's kind of like the farmer, I got to do something extra here. And I think for those of us who do have children, like my wife and I, our children are gone now. So, but we still look at trying to get other kids out. And so like in our church and all, we try to get as many kids out in our church as possible. But the kids love it, though.
What's the age group that you're really focusing on for those kids? Are they a little older, a little younger?
8 to 17.
8 to 17, okay.
Basically, the earlier you get them, the better, because they really love it, Sure. It's just a little bit more time,
Sure. And
they love it.
And it's all outdoor activities, whether it's
Oh, yeah, all
fishing,
outdoor.
hiking, biking,
there you
shooting.
Go. Yeah. Tubing, whatever we do, apple picking, it's all outdoors,
Okay.
Now, the trap shooting deal, the thing is there, when we go to South St. Paul Rod and Gun Club, you got to be at least 12 years old to shoot. So
Sure.
they can't, the little guys can't shoot, no.
Sure.
But they understand that, too.
Sure. So is there anything that any of the listeners can do to help donate? Is it, whether it's time, finances, ideas, anything to that initiative?
We can use ideas, and we can use donations. If people want to come and volunteer with us as we take the kids out, we can take the volunteers. Like I say, it's a shortage of adults. The kids, we can get the kids. It's the adults we run a shortage of.
Well, I know a guy who just bought 32 acres relatively close to here who might be able to get some of those younger kids shooting without an age limit.
Sure. Okay.
Honestly, I'd love nothing more. It's a huge passion of mine to get kids outdoors, introduced into outdoors. Sure. I grew up doing it, and I was an anomaly. I mean, my dad didn't allow us to have a video game console in the house. He said, go outside and play with sticks and stones. Yeah. And that's what we did. Yeah. And I personally believe that it's exacerbated my faith. It's exacerbated my moral compass.
Sure.
It's given me the things that I needed in life to perceive how finite and precious life is.
Yeah.
Those, and I've said this on other podcasts, so some of the listeners are probably hearing me repeat a lot of this, but those are the life lessons you can't learn in a classroom.
You're exactly right. Exactly right. So it's imperative that we get the kids outdoors. That's the way I look at it.
I know growing up, I grew up in South Metro Bloomington, so we had Highland Park in our backyard. And I mean, that was from when we were 8, 9 years old till 14 until, you start getting some sports. But we spent hours back there. We had our little quote unquote clubs, and which is like me and my brother and the other couple. You'd go out there and we'd pack lunches, and we even raised turkeys and chickens, a number of quail, pheasants. Sure. A lot of those get released into the park, and I like to think there were a few years there we saw a lot of pheasants because of that. And again, we were 9, 10, 11 years old when we did that too. But yeah, absolutely. I remember my parents were like, "Do you want a video game set for Christmas?" when I was 10 or 11, and I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And so we stopped at a store and I played with it. I'm like, I guess it's cool, but no, I'm good. Yeah. Turned out they gave it to my college age brother because they're like, well, we'd already bought it. So
yeah.
You should have just told them to save the money and get the shotgun.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, we just got a dog. So that was it. So before we wrap up here, is there anything you'd like to kind of touch on that maybe we haven't touched on, or any other information?
I guess putting in a plug for Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever, I do think that people who are not, let's say, members of organizations like that, I think it's good because they do a lot of good work as far as sending people to Washington, D.C. to advocate for good conservation practices. So being a member, just a person being a member, is just, it might be a small thing, but being a Quail Forever member, Pheasants Forever member, I think that's good. Just do that. You might not be that active, you might not be a hunter, but they push strongly as far as No Child Left Indoors, same thing we've been talking about. They push strongly on conservation. So, but being a member of organizations like that, I think it'd be just a worthwhile thing. So sometimes a person cannot get outdoors, but they can be members and support the other things that people are trying to do. As organizations are.
Like anything else.
Sure.
Finances always help,
Definitely.
Help with and everything. So as we're wrapping up here, in your eyes, what does success for Minnesota quail look like? I'm sure there are a lot of people who don't even really know there were quail in Minnesota, with the exception of a guy going to a game farm, but a wild population of them. So what does that look like to you?
To me, I would look at success is that right now, let's say we got 1,000 birds in the state, and I'm looking at 5 years, if we can pull it up to, let's say, 5,000 birds, and in 10 years, let's say you're in the 20,000 range, that to me would be success, and of course, that's going to be some work and put in the right habitat on the landscape that we need for those birds to exist and all.
So through your experience with the DNR and everything else over the years, if we got the birds up to that kind of population, do you think we would have a hunting season here in Minnesota again?
I don't know. It's hard saying. I know that dove season, it was not easy for the DNR to get that going. And as my understanding, it was by one vote that it happened, And I know in the metro area here, they get an awful lot of anti-hunters. I understand that, But for us hunters, harvesting game is no big deal, and some people, oh man, why are you killing? But anyway, I just think it's hard saying. I don't know whether they'd want to push that. They've been reluctant with quail in the past, and that was one of the reasons they took the quail off the chickadee checkoff initiative back in the 70s. It's because if they ever did want to reopen that season and people had donated to that, these anti-hunters you took my money, now you're going to shoot these birds. So I don't know. Our thing is, the aim is not, I love to see a hunting season. There's no doubt about it. Just by, like Wisconsin has what I call an incidental hunting season there on quail in Wisconsin, which means that if you're out there hunting pheasants and you happen to bump into a covey of quail, if you want to take one or two, whatever, you can do that. But you could do the same thing here, but I don't know. It's hard saying. I think it depends on the personnel, the people in the DNR at that time, whether they'd be willing to do that. And I don't know. My thing is, I think it's just just a neat thing for people in the state to be able to say, hey, I can go somewhere and hear and see bobwhite quail.
Right.
That's the big thing,
Right.
I completely agree with you. It's just, I was kind of curious what your take was on it, because you look at Wisconsin where you can still legally harvest the birds, but there's no habitat work being done. Sure. There's not a Thurman over in Wisconsin working on this like you have. I have to really commend you. You've done a lot of work over here, and I kind of feel like these quail they owe you a debt of gratitude.
We got a lot of work to do yet, so I think we're headed in the right direction. I feel good about it.
So based off of what you're kind of seeing with, commitment from landowners and stuff like that, you think there's hope for them? Do you think we'll ever get to that?
I really do.
5,000
you have some really dedicated, really serious people who want to see that bird. They're working down there. These landowners they're doing a lot. Sure. And so I think there's a real possibility. That's my view. Good. Maybe a little overly optimistic, but I feel good about it.
Okay. So I know we kind of talked about this off air, but God came down and gave you the magic wand. What would you do?
Oh my goodness, you got time. Well, here's one I mentioned. This is number one here. We'd like to have a bridge built across that creek, to be able to access, to be able to get over there.
For that donated piece.
Yep. Right now we have to go through. It's not easy to get back over there. The land is there. That'd be number one. And I like to see good quail habitat established in half the landowners in Houston County. To me, that's dreaming and
right. Oh yeah.
Hey guys, we got some good stuff going on. So half the landowners are going to be doing that. And I like to see some good quail habitat established in the Whitewater Wildlife Management Area, and that's a public land, quite a few acres there. But it could be used for quail too, I think.
Sure.
So I'd like to see that. And that's not in Houston County. That's in Wabasha County. But I'd like to see that. And I'd like to see all schools to be able to have some program that the children can engage in some type of habitat improvement or habitat in building or habitat management program. It's ongoing. For the kids to be connected with nature in some kind of way. So, if I had my way, that's what I'd like to see.
They sound like pretty good things.
Yeah. And it's okay, here's the one here too. I'd like to see several sites, let's say in just Houston County alone, where you would have some ideal, good quail habitat structured, where people, senior citizens, mind you, can drive their vehicles to be able to see and hear bobwhite quail.
Sure.
Because I look at people in nursing homes, and they like to be able to get out and stuff, and they don't have the ability to walk like a lot of people do. But then to be motorized or being carried through and be able, man, it was good to hear those birds. I saw quite a few birds, not only quail, but they're going to be seeing meadowlarks and pheasants and chickadees and other ones. To have the senior citizens to be able to enjoy something, because I know a lot of them are sitting in nursing homes and it's just not a lot of outdoor activities, just sitting. But anyway, have some location they could take them. I just think that would really be good for senior citizens.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's absolutely compounded issue now with COVID and everything else.
Yeah,
so if you can get, if you can,
sure.
I don't know. Again, it's like with kids. Yeah. It's getting people outdoors. It's just absolutely a passion of mine. So I love what I'm hearing from you there.
And you got a lot of old timers who grew up like me, hunting and stuff, and the old guys, And I think the ladies would enjoy it too. Being out. So, man, that was just so good to be able to be outdoors in the woods and stuff. And they had a nice vehicle they can drive. Paved deal they can drive and,
sure.
and just sit and listen and look and stuff like that. To me, I think that would be great.
I know we've had our wives both out there. They're not hardcore hunting. They're not going to spend the time we are. But I know my wife occasionally asked, and she wanted to go to South Dakota 2 years ago, which we ended up not making happen. But the people we actually quail hunt with in Kansas one is her uncle, who's really linked us in. And so I'm all for, these last couple of years we've had kids or been pregnant, and so obviously there's different things with that. But I know sure. I can't wait for the moment that she's able to come down and, if nothing else, just walk along and be with family, her cousin and her uncle and her dad, and then obviously with a son and daughter. I know the son is too young to even know, but my daughter, she loves loves being outdoors and just looking back here on the lake and seeing ducks and occasionally when she's sick, I have all my taxidermy up in one room, and if she's not feeling good or not sleeping well, I'll go jump in bed with her there, and we'll take her there. She'll seem to stay asleep, and first thing she does every morning is list off all the deer, duck, grouses, growl, and quail, and all that type of stuff. So I know I'm excited to hopefully get her out there, and maybe she'll bring some friends along. So.
Sure. But it's a start, It's just a start.
Yep. So, well, I'd really like to thank you for your time. It's what you've done with Quail Forever and your habitat projects and your starting of chapters is, I think, been incredible, and it's really good to see the projects that you've done and hear about them and really know that there are quail here, and there is still a foothold, and we can hopefully improve with it. And so I thank you for that, and hopefully a lot of people will really hear this and hopefully join the metro chapter or the southeast chapter, and or maybe reach out and be able to link up with some of the habitat projects and or even the kid initiative here and all that type of thing. So we can't thank you enough for your time. And I think Brian kind of said before, we really we owe you a lot of gratitude for quail and just keeping it alive and really doing a lot of the footwork and legwork with these landowners. And you kind of touch on it before, like just the personal relationships, and you're the guy getting down there and meeting with these landowners and keeping the relationships alive and the contacts alive. And it sounds like you've done a very good job at it too. So
it's been a pleasure to me. I really enjoy it.
Right.
Love watching the nature, as I drive down, being down there, meeting the people. So it's been just a good pleasure.
Good. Well, Brian, anything to add?
Yeah, all I really wanted to say too is thank you so much. I mean, really thank you for responding to Jeff and interviewing both of us here today. But thank you for the work you've done. I've recently interviewed a group of Wisconsin Sharp-tailed Grouse Society, and I'm starting to see this trend where there's gentlemen like yourself who are older in age, and there doesn't necessarily seem to be a bunch of young guards coming below you. And I'm really hoping that through this podcast and through some of the things that we're doing at Amaazen Outdoors, that we're going to inspire some of these younger people to get involved with the chapters and start filling in the role, so that when you're ready to move on and start hunting full time again, there's somebody there that cares as much as you do about the birds and willing to put in the work to keep heading in the right direction.
That's a good point, because what I've often seen here too, you got old timers like myself and young guys like yourself. That's where we're missing this. Because all of us, we old guys. Now you guys are fortunate you're hunting right now, but there's so many your age is not hunting, are not connected with the outdoors. They're really into sports. Nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying when it comes to the outdoors, the hunting, the fishing, and that type of stuff, we really need young guys like yourselves to be able to relate to those 18-year-olds, the 20 and the 17-year-olds, to bring them along. So us old-timers, you can only do so much. You guys got all the techno knowledge and everything else. They go, oh, man, I like whatever and all. But, hey, anyway, we need guys like your age to say, hey, step up and work with us older guys, too, and us all work together, So I think it's a good thing myself.
Absolutely. It's the only way we're going to expand our community. Sure. It's the only way we're going to be more inclusive long-term. Yep. And it's the only way you're going to expand hunting privileges and fishing privileges for all of us.
There you go.
You have to work together.
Sure.
And, we're not always going to agree. But being civil, being good stewards of our land, and sitting down and have good civil discourse to get something done.
Thank you.
It's
better.
It's what's the problem with a lot of our politics here in this country, and I think there's a lot of that has translated into our own lives, and it's time to get rid of that.
Yeah,
it's time to buckle down, get down to brass tacks here, and do what really needs to happen, because sage grouse, quail, prairie chickens, sharp-tailed grouse in certain areas, they're all in this space.
I know.
And especially the native birds. Yeah. They've got to compete with pheasants and these other things that we've done to the landscape today. So it really takes a major initiative by all of our parts, and really Jeff and I's age group to really start pushing this forward and getting involved with all of these groups, because if you love it, you better be involved, because it's going to change otherwise.
And it's going to take us to do it, you know.
Exactly.
I agree.
So excellent. And again, you guys have a Facebook page.
Yeah, that was the last thing I wanted to
website
touch base on.
that they can specifically link into the Minnesota chapters here, so they can.
And we touched base on it a little bit, and I can't remember if it was in the pre-show or during the show, but if people are interested in joining the Minnesota Quail Forever chapters, join directly with the chapters, because the dollars will stay within those chapters, a higher percentage of dollars. So I will make sure that in the show notes that we include contact information for your chapter, so that people can join specifically in Minnesota.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, again, I thank you for your time, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Sure, appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Amaazen Outdoors Podcast. Please support Jason at Upland Outfitters. He's going to give you 10% off with promo code Amaazen. Throw in free shipping. They're great pants. I've literally wore them for 2 weeks straight now, and I've had them just about in every situation except for running them up in the mountains. So I live in the Midwest. It's everything I can do in the springtime. They've held up better than some jeans I've had, and especially when it comes in contact with water. So make sure you check out his pants. Promo code Amaazing. Thank you again for listening. Support your local habitat. Get involved in our RGS, QF, whatever it is. Deer Hunters of America. Just get involved. So thank you again for listening to Amaazen Outdoors Podcast. All this information will be in the show notes if you want to get involved in any of these local projects that we talk about.